What is the process of actually buying an existing residential assisted living business? What are the things you need to do? What are the things you need to look out for? So in this video, I'm going to cover that. So let's go ahead and jump into it. What's going on, everyone? I hope you're all doing well. If you're new here, my name is Serge. Welcome to the channel. To all my reoccurring viewers, thank you so much for all the love and support that each and every single one of you have shown this channel. And if you have not yet, make sure to go check out legionassistedlivingacademy.com, where I teach how to start your own facility from A to Z. And also you can book a one-on-one mentorship call. You can book a full in-day person mentorship with myself. And then also you can get the supportive month-to-month mentorship after that. That's something we can discuss once you book that. And you can go and get the Performa template. You can go get the residency agreement, so on and so forth. There's a lot of resources there. And if you have not checked out valleyalfventures.com, that is where we work with limited partners or passive investors to come alongside us and invest in facilities. So if that's something that you are interested in, feel free to go check that out and book a call with us. We would love to have a conversation with you. And now that the housekeeping is all out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the topic of this video. Now, when you go to buy an existing residential assisted living business, there are a lot of things that you're gonna want to look for and look at when you're buying an existing business, especially with residential assisted living. Now, the very first thing I always like to look at when I'm inquiring about an existing business is taking a look at what deficiencies they've had in the past from their previous surveys. What is the current reputation by looking at their Google reviews, looking at their online presence. What does that all look like? Do they have a good reputation? Also, if you can, and this is something I always do with placement agents that work in a specific area, I always try to reach out to them and gauge what their thoughts are on not just the location, but also if they've encountered or have any contracts in place with that existing residential assisted living business. And that gives me a really good insight of, will they be placing there again? What's their experience been with the current ownership? Have they stiffed them of any money that they owe them? Is there any outstanding balances? You know, things of that sort. Have they placed a lot of private pay clients if they've ever placed there? There's a lot of information you can gather from a placement agent who's placed at an existing residential assisted living business. So that's something I do. I know a lot of people aren't able to even contact those placement agents, but what you can do is when you're in your due diligence period, look at those contracts that have in place with placement agents and give them a call, because they will give you a lot of insight if they've worked with that facility before and what their experience has been with the current ownership. And so that's one thing to definitely look at. But another thing I like to look at is definitely making sure that the zoning is in place. So having that certificate of occupancy, making sure that there's no outstanding balances with the fire department or the fire monitoring company, and also with the utility companies. And also another thing that I like to look at is obviously the property itself. The condition of the property is a big factor as well, and making sure that if I'm gonna go in there, what type of improvements am I gonna have to do? What type of allocation of those improvements am I gonna have to get funding for and put away, such as capital expenditures, what they like to call it in the real estate space. Making sure I have that all factored into my underwriting, and how soon I'm gonna wanna go in there and do those types of capital expenditures. Another thing that I like to look at is the residency agreements. When I look at the residency agreements, the reason why is because what happens is a lot of owners and a lot of care home operators, they don't ever give any type of rate increases, or they have it in a while, meaning like 2+ years, they haven't given any kind of rate increases. And in the residency agreements, what you'll find is that the family and the care home operator made some type of agreement that they're just gonna be on a fixed rate for pretty much either the lifetime of the contract or the lifetime of the resident being at the facility. And that's a big no-no, because what happens is when you come in, that's a conversation you're gonna have with that family, and that's usually a cause of them moving out. And giving them a rate increase right away to get it to market rate is gonna cause them to leave right away, right? They're gonna go to another care home who's gonna offer a similar type of agreement, And so when you see that, that's something that you want the owners to automatically address. And if the families are on board to go ahead and allow a rate increase, if not, at least that vacancy will happen under their ownership, and they can have that bed filled with a proper resident who can get the right rate where the market's at. So that is another reason why I like to look at the residency agreements for the most part. A lot of residency agreements are pretty standard, and they're very kind of black and white for the most part. There's not a lot of weird stuff that's added in there, but that's one of the weird things, and definitely a big one that I've seen in the past with residency agreements. And then another thing is, when you look at these residency agreements, what I like to look at is the ratio of Medicaid patient residents in the home, and then also the private pay ratio. And I like to have a higher private pay ratio versus the opposite. I don't really like a lot of Medicaid, and because there's going to be a Medicaid contract in place at that facility, which you then have to go through a lot of, red tape to get that transferred over, along with the change of ownership for the license as well, which the change of ownership for the license versus the Medicaid contract are two separate things that need to happen. But it is something to consider, especially when it comes to the time frame of you closing on that facility and what that would look like. So these are all a lot of things that I like to look at. Another thing that I definitely look at with an existing business is the current staff, right? Are all the staff properly vetted? Have they got all their credentials that they need to have? And if so, what are their current rates that they're being paid? And making sure that a lot of them are actually W-2 and not 1099. Because what happens in a lot of these smaller residential assisted living homes is they'll 1099 their caregivers, which they should be W-2 their caregivers. And what happens is on their P&Ls and their payroll, they will show a very, I would say, not realistic amount that's actually should be allocated to payroll. And so when you factor in W-2 and payroll taxes and things of that sort, that changes the P&Ls and what your actual margins are gonna be for that facility. And so what this ultimately, it's not a deal breaker, because what you have to realize is once you can actually factor in realistic numbers and you're not turning a profit, you go back in and you negotiate based on where things are gonna be at when you have to step in and what changes are gonna be necessary. And so your offer is gonna be based on that and not really the numbers that they give you. And that's why it's very important to underwrite appropriately and accurately, because your offer shouldn't be based on what their numbers are gonna be, because a lot of the times it's really hard. I've only probably, out of like all the facilities that I've seen, I wanna say the percentage of facilities that have accurate numbers is less than 10%. And so that's okay, because you can always, again, negotiate and work based on the numbers that you're putting together. And I always submit those numbers with the offer, because you have to show them, hey, this is justifying my offer, and I'm not just coming up with some arbitrary number. So that is something I always look at with existing facilities, and something a lot of you should always factor in. I know there's a couple golden nuggets in there that a lot of you should take away and utilize when you're looking at existing businesses to purchase, especially residential assisted living or any type of residential based healthcare facility. And if this video did help, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you have any questions down below. Again, you can go and book a one-on-one mentorship call with myself at legionassistedlivingacademy.com, and I will talk to you all in the next video. God bless.